Hi, I'm Felicia Darling. I'm the author of Teachin It, an upcoming book that should come out in December. And it's basically like a practical guide to redressing the achievement gap in community college classrooms. I'm new at this, so I'm new at the video, but I'm also new at being a professor here at the Santa Rosa Junior College. That's why I stumble a bit on that one. But I am a math instructor in the College Skills Department here at the Santa Rosa Junior College. And I'm here today with Abigail Zoger, who is a biology instructor in the life sciences department. Did I say it right?
We just changed to biological sciences.
Oh, okay, there you go. Let me just tell you a little bit that I have been trying to get an interview with Abigail Zoger for like 2 months for my book. And we tried, but unfortunately the people who are most active on the college sometimes are the hardest to get. So, and I interviewed probably 20 people at the junior college, and about 10 different times people are like, you got to interview Abigail Zoger. So I got this on my agenda. I'm saying your name right, Abigail Zoger, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, good. I have it on my agenda, and I'm finally here, so I'm really grateful. And I'm really happy for you that you get to hear from her expertise, because she does a lot with building communities of practice and practitioners here on campus, building network communities, and a lot of professional development around the science of teaching. But I'm not going to ask her those questions right away, but you might want to share that stuff. I'm going to go ahead and ask her the same questions I've been asking the other people who came on, the other instructors, like, for instance, why do you like teaching at the community college? What do you do in your first day of class? And what are some of your strategies, practices, and approaches that you can share with us? So I'm going to start with the first question, and that is, why do you like teaching at the community college level? Why are you here?
Well, there's a couple reasons why I teach here, and some of those are ones that I learned after starting to teach at a community college. I realized how much what I really appreciated. And I initially was attracted because it was a place that valued and emphasized teaching rather than the research that I saw at the universities where I do my graduate work. And not that research wasn't valid, but it did mean that professors were very torn in their priorities. What should they do for helping students in their classes versus what should they do to pursue their research and their grant money and their prestige. And then when I arrived at the community college, I realized that, not to be too grandiose about this, but community colleges are sort of this bulwark of our democracy.
A what?
Bulwark, the sort of forward.
I don't know what that is.
It's like, I don't know if I can define it. I can use that word. It's like a defense of our democracy, because it's the true.
I'm glad you defined that.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
We'll make sure I define that correctly.
Okay.
But it's a place where people can get a second chance. Anyone can come here, right? And we have people who are right out of high school. We have people who've immigrated recently. We have people who tried to go to college, failed at that for one reason or another, and have decided to return. We have people with learning disabilities. We have people with physical disabilities. We have people who have psychological disabilities, who are, of all of those disabilities, probably the most, discriminated against in our society. And this is all here for them for a very nominal fee, open access, anyone can come.
Wow.
And so people can have a do-over. And that's kind of rare in our society. You don't really get a chance to do things a second time and move forward however far you want to go. We have students, you and I, I'm sure, who've gone on to graduate school and are professors or medical school or become teachers or nurses, or, they become whatever it is they envisioned, and they couldn't have done that if they had to go straight to a university. That the community college provides that transitional experience between high school or K through 12 and graduate school, the work world, where people can reinvent themselves.
Nice.
And so
how does that relate to the democracy thing?
Well,
the bulwark of democracy. New word for me too.
Because if we're going to have a true democracy, there has to be a way for people to move upward economically, or else people become very stratified in social classes, right? And then eventually there's resentment and anger, and we've all seen histories of what that does. But if people have opportunities, I feel like it makes people feel like their society a vested interest in, and it's equitable.
Yeah, I see.
And democracies are supposed to be equitable.
Right, I see. So it's more equal opportunities for students who maybe wouldn't have the opportunity to go straight to a 4-year.
Yeah.
This gives them that little leg up on that experience.
Yeah, or if for some reason they weren't focusing in high school, they were involved in drugs, or they had to work, or they were still learning English. Right,
drugs and work.
Yeah, and they didn't really succeed in high school for one reason or another. There's lots of very entertaining reasons that students might give us when you finally talk to them. Entertaining for us, not for them having lived through it, I'm sure. And now they're in their mid-20s, late 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever, they're coming back. In biology, because people need to come back to go to medical school, which is often seen as this, like, it's something people know, being a nurse or a doctor, as a way to get yourself economically ahead. So biology, we see a lot of people who return who want that science education so they can move on.
It's like a gateway course to the medical field.
Yeah, and that means that we see a lot of people who are trying to reinvent themselves.
Okay. So I love this. The original question is, why do you like teaching in a community college? And you were really expanding on the idea of community colleges being a bulwark of democracy, which all the political science people are like, oh yeah, totally, yay, high five. I'm still struggling processing the word, but okay, cool. And so yeah, go ahead.
And then finally, the other thing is that I really enjoy our students. Right, they're really a very enjoyable group of people. They're very diverse. They're very appreciative, because it is that chance. Whereas when I was a graduate student and then afterwards I did teach a little bit at UC Davis as a lecturer. And people have already arrived, right? They're there. And they're not, they are now striving for the next thing they want to do. And they don't feel, oh, thank God I'm at Davis and I had this appreciation of opportunity. It's like, well, of course I have this opportunity. I'm super smart. Or whatever. Whereas our students are like, oh my God, I have this chance to do this, and then I can go to Davis, or I can go where I need to go.
Right, so we're like giving them a leg up to the next step, whereas Davis, maybe they're stepping on your head on their way up. No offense to Davis.
I mean, they have their own diversities, but it's just a little bit more of a, well, of course I'm here.
Okay.
A little bit more, which I don't find at the community college.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. So that's my long-winded story of why I like teaching at community college.
Anything else you'd like to share? It was fun listening to that. It was really kind of inspiring listening to that.
Yeah.
Hope it's inspiring for viewers. Anything else you'd like to share about why you like teaching it? Not that that's not enough. It is, but
I mean,
it's so good.
I fundamentally, I'm a person who is, my job doesn't feel like work. So, and there's so many reasons for that. But I mean, they're definitely.
But you work. Let me just say that it's not because she doesn't work. Because try to get an appointment. We've been trying to get together since August. Really, since August for other reasons to collaborate, and then for this interview for the last 3 months. So. It's not because you don't work hard. That's not why your job doesn't feel like work.
There are parts that, I mean, like when I'm grading, for example, I'm like, it's a good thing they're paying me for this, because this is not fun.
Right, so some parts.
But I love what I do, and that's a privilege in this world. Like, how many people feel like...
Yeah, I do. I love my job too.
I know. And like if I'm feeling sick or unhappy or depressed or whatever, and I get up and I go to school and I just get in front of a class and I'm working with students, I inevitably feel better by the end of that day, right? It takes me out of myself. I'm of use and of service in the society, and that's kind of the best
thing. It's a meaningful job, and it feeds your passion. And if you could package that and sell that to other instructors who might be waning a bit in their energy, that would be super awesome.
I guess I'd say to them the easiest thing is to just really... I mean, our students, for the most part, I mean, there's a whole range of students, but they're pretty inspiring. They're at that stage where they're just starting to feel their powers, right? And they're sort of coming into themselves often as they're who they are, an 18, 20-year-old, which is most of them, not all of them. It's a pretty exciting thing to watch. So I don't know, I'd say slow down and watch your students.
This is the smell the roses along the way thing.
Smell your students along the way.
Don't smell your students. Don't do that.
Oh, that's counter-recommended.
We don't want that. You don't have to delete that, Emily. We're going to keep that in, by the way. Emily's probably already over there editing.
Your students.
That's not the advice from us today.
Yes.
But to lean in and kind of like smelling roses along the way, lean in and just be like, so what's going on? Appreciative of the journey that you're also on with them.
Yeah.
You're kind of co-creating with them.
Hopefully.
Cool. Thank you so much. That was super, super inspiring, as I said. So the next question is, I like to ask people what they do in their first class and how do they launch their class. I think it tells a lot about their teacher in philosophy. Also, it's really the first day, what you do sets the stage for norms and what's going to be happening in the class. It really prepares students for your own teaching style and who you are. So my question is, what do you do? What are some of the activities you do, approaches, strategies, activities that you do on the first day to launch your class?
I'm going to start this by saying what I have stopped doing.
Okay, good. I love that you're a researcher, scientist. She's involved in that iterative process, right? The cycle of instructional improvement. I love that you're starting there.
Well, I used to, because that's what everybody did, take out the syllabus and we go over it with them, and I read off, like, this is what the lectures are, and this is when the exams are going to be, and these are things that are due, and these are things you can do and can't do in the class, blah, blah, blah. And, like, is there any, I'm pretty sure that only a small fraction of the class heard a small fraction of what I said.
Right.
And
cognitive overload.
Yeah, and so even though I believe that students only read things if they hear it, and they only hear it if they read it, that most of that was just in and out. And so one thing, so I stopped doing that.
Okay.
and it was of no use, I believed, and I'm really glad it's freed up time because my students can read. They're excellent readers.
Right.
I can give them a syllabus and they can read it.
You can read it at home.
Very, very well. I'm supposed to be there to help them with the things they can't do.
Right.
So I will.
I like that attitude.
Yeah. So just this isn't the main focus of what I do my first day, but just to get that piece out of the way, what I do is I say to students, I want you to go home and I want you to read this. And I want each of you to have 2 questions about the syllabus that you put on separate index cards. And then they give them to me when they walk in the next day, and I just quick sort them into stacks of the similar questions, right? You know, these are all people trying to find out to the exam days ever missed, or these are all the people who are trying to find out what's on the exams, like how do my exams function. These are all the people who don't understand this research project we're going to do. And then I'll just take them and I'll address those questions. And that means that they have to think about what they read and process it. And this is sort of going to the strategies, which is that cognitive psychology shows us that people absorb information that they have to do something with, right?
Like synthesize or create.
Or constructivism, we construct our own knowledge internally by doing something with it. And so, therefore, they have to do something with the syllabus for them to have any idea what's in it. And so, that's the way I handle the nuts and bolts of the class. And because they always have questions, and they're very nervous. I've taken classes here at the JC, so something that influenced me a lot is I took my Spanish. I had never taken Spanish, and then around 10 years ago I signed up and took Spanish here, starting with Spanish 1, and the language instruction is, I think, way out ahead of a lot of other areas of teaching in terms of their application of the psychology of education.
Like the social constructivist approach?
Yeah, they really seem much more advanced. And so being a student in that environment was really educational.
I see.
And I remember the first day of each Spanish class, even though I took the same instructor all 3 times, and I'll give you a name of someone you should interview. Because she's amazing.
Maybe I had her. I don't know. I took 1 class here. But anyway,
because I would say this woman is one of the best teachers I've ever had in any class I've ever taken in my whole life.
You should say her name.
Susanna Ackerman.
There you go.
Is a teaching goddess.
There you go. I mean, who doesn't want to hear that about themselves?
Right, she's amazing. Anyway, I would feel like I would get anxious looking at the syllabus, like, oh, I have to do this and I have to do that, and I understand how this works and how these pieces fit, and I'm not going to be able to handle all this.
Oh, wow.
So there's all that anxiety, and it doesn't really help to have someone just ramble through it. Right? So, and in some ways...
So even you were anxious as a person with a master's in
biology, And because if you're taking a class, by de facto you're in an area you don't know.
Good point.
And so it's all kind of new and confusing and challenging.
That makes sense.
And then the other thing I do is I always start each lecture or each week with what are the nuts and bolts coming up.
Okay.
So, like, we'll go over the upcoming
Mm-hmm.
assignments or upcoming, like, announcements, and so that, and it's a period where students can ask me questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I think because it's a mistake to think that if you get that out of the way in the first lecture, that they're going to remember it,
Mm-hmm.
or they're not going to have more questions, or there's not going to be more anxiety. Because even though I explained thoroughly, like, this is what my exams are going to be like,
Mm-hmm.
just the fact, because it's anxious and maybe provoking
see.
for them, we all know that anxiety reduces memory.
Yeah.
So
You could write the book.
so they're all like, you know, I'm thinking of being, I told you, blah, 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 and then they're like, yeah, but I don't remember because
Yeah.
I was a nervous wreck.
Right.
And so,
So on your first day, you do not just go through
No.
and just provide a flurry of data about
No.
syllabus. You actually give them a meaningful activity that they can take home.
Yeah.
And synthesize knowledge, come back, create using those Bloom's higher order
Mhm.
things that
Yeah.
strategies that promote higher order thinking, and then you're saying that because you don't give them a ton of information at one time, you will let them know like every class period what's coming up.
I mean, I certainly talk about things, like in those questions they have me, they're always saying, well, what's this research project going to be like? How's that going to work? And I'll give them the outline of that.
Okay.
But I won't assume that they'll remember that.
Right, so you don't want to bombard them with
So
information.
or I will, but I need to repeat it
Mhm.
and come back to it. Like, you know, the other idea that is that iteration, right?
Mhm.
Each time a student is exposed to a new idea, that they're actually perhaps perceiving,
Getting
absorbing,
a few pieces and then like
Yeah,
getting a
can-
few more building
and
understanding.
then using other things they've learned in other
Mhm.
places to add to that. So
Mhm.
now they're seeing the greater perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So I just feel like you can't. It's not a one and done. These
Mhm.
are the nuts and bolts
Right,
of the
right, I
course.
see, yeah. Mhm.
So what I do is the first thing we do is
Okay,
we
so
play.
we're still talking about your first
First class.
class. This is the
First
first
class.
class in this course in this semester.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is I will do some sort of getting to know you game.
Okay.
So what I do now is getting to know you bingo, which I'm sure you've
Okay.
seen. It has like find a person who has broken their leg or broken
Okay.
a bone more than
Mhm.
once, or
Okay.
find someone. Like there's some things who likes, I don't know, a musician,
Mhm.
or someone who only wears black,
Okay.
or somebody who is, I don't say bilingual anymore, I say is fluent in more than 2 languages.
Ah.
Because that makes it harder, because there's a lot of bilingual students in our classes,
Oh,
right?
I see.
And so I want to make it all one of the hard ones, and they have to get, you know, a
Oh.
row of people or a
Oh, that's the bingo part.
Yeah, it's like a bingo thing,
Ah.
and they have to go around and find people, and so
Oh.
and then people get to be very popular, like the girl who speaks. What was my last one? It was an unusual combination of like.
She wears black and she speaks 3 languages.
Well, two 3 languages. She spoke English, and she spoke 2 languages. She was from India originally.
Oh.
And it's actually more common for them to have
to
like
have more
4
languages,
languages,
yeah,
actually.
sure, yep.
And then we whine about like, oh, I'm not speaking Spanish. I'm like, you know, in many parts of the world, people
People
speak
speak-
4 or 5
Yeah.
languages. You know?
Yeah. Get with the program.
Yeah, they think we're
Yeah, yeah.
whining, and we
Yeah.
are. And so anyway, then she's everyone wants to congregate on her because she's the can fill in that
Oh,
really
interesting.
difficult box, right?
Interesting.
And the reason I do that is that I've always felt that a sense of comfort and ease and community is crucial in a classroom, and that that students, we need to work together. The students and I, it's a cooperative venture
Okay.
that we're embarking on, and the only way we as humans do that is if there's a sense of comfort and trust.
Mhm.
Otherwise, I'll always be protecting myself and not
Okay.
willing to. And let's face it, to learn you have to be willing to look foolish,
Huh,
because you have to do
interesting.
something new. And the first time I do something new, often I don't do it right.
Right.
Or
Why
correctly.
would you? Because
Why
you don't
would
know how
I?
to do it.
Like
yeah.
the thing I was saying, so are you assuming you're supposed to know this information before you take the class to learn the information? Is that what you're saying to me?
So basically, you just get an A in everything and learn nothing.
Right. So
Stay the same.
And Susanna was very good at that, because language is
Is that Ackerman?
it's even more that way, because you have to really make a fool of yourself to learn a foreign
Yes.
language.
You have to put yourself out
I
there.
mean, the things we've each said while trying to learn a foreign language are like, I won't even report
Yeah.
my most famous error that Susanna got me to make for everybody in the class. Afterwards, after off video, I'll tell you what I said. And
Okay.
it wasn't the embarazada one, it was way worse than that
Okay.
one. And so, but I can't learn if I don't take a risk. And so community is really crucial. And
so this activity helps to build
it's
community.
a start.
Yeah,
it's a start.
Because it's launching the first. This is the launch,
sets the
right?
tone,
So
right? I want you to know each other. And the other thing I do in my class is
first day.
No, this is actually just part of the community. Is I assign them seats.
Okay.
And I move it around every day.
Okay.
So they are not working with the same person.
So you randomize groups in a way.
I do.
Okay.
And they just go along with it. You'd think they'd be like...
Because you set the stage right away.
Yeah, they don't. And part is the classroom I teach in, it's not very well set up for viewing the board and the projector equally from all parts of the room.
Oh, so that's an equity issue.
And I do want to mix it up. And some people will say to me, my eyesight's very weak, I need to be in the front row, so I'll try and keep that in mind. Or some people will come speak to me about things.
Okay.
But I want them to mix them up, and I want them to work with all the different people. And I also try sometimes to, every now and then, match up someone I know is stronger and weaker, so that, because...
In their skills in the class? Certain skills.
Yeah, so that they can be watching what other people are doing, so that, and building those bridges.
So you do some strategic grouping as well as kind
sometimes,
of randomized grouping.
Yeah.
When you're like, okay, because they don't really know.
Because there's nothing...
What your rationale is, right?
If I have a 25-person class, I've had this before, where people don't know the name of one of the people in the class, and that's just incredible. 25 is not a very big group, but they sort of end up like there's the southwest quadrant clique and the northeast quadrant clique,
and they do not move.
And they don't. And in my classes, the biology majors classes, they've been taking chemistry, physics, and math and biology together for many semesters. So they come in with relationships, positive and negative, already built. And I'm just not willing to let that stand.
So you're keeping it dynamic by continuing to move.
And then sometimes I'll say, okay, just sit wherever you want, because then they'll get, especially if we're doing something uncomfortable that day, I might let them just sit whatever they want, because they'll feel more, they'll be with people they trust more.
By uncomfortable means something a little bit outside their comfort zone, like a little harder.
They know you have to speak up. I mean, everyone wants me to speak out and say something in front of everybody, or it's a really hard topic that we're working on. That I know, and we're going to be doing a worksheet with it that will really challenge them, and they get frustrated, and it's easier to be frustrated with somebody.
The people you're working, right? So, do you have something else you want to add? I'm keeping track of the questions.
Okay, so
I'm like, are we still on launching the classroom?
Well, so
I get it, how the launch is related to what happens later.
Well, what you said was that the first day sets the tone, and so first of all, I believe in people. The research is really clear that people have to do something in order to acquire knowledge and information. So that's
you mean not just sitting here and waiting for the knowledge? That's not good enough. Or I'm waiting for you to fill me with knowledge. That doesn't work. So they have to be engaged.
Yes. Yeah. So and then the second I believe is community is very important in order to support learning. And then the third thing is that I believe that the students need to learn how to learn. And I don't think that we teach them that. Either people in high school are good at school and they do well, or they're not good at school and they do poorly.
A fixed mindset kind of thing.
Yeah, and so then no one ever says to them, well, we teach people how to work hard with your bodies in sports and dance.
Like they get coaches.
Music, physical labor, how to work out. But there are techniques for working hard with your brain. But we don't actually... as far as I can tell, not being in the K-12 system...
Maybe we're getting better at it.
But the students don't come to me with that knowledge. If someone's teaching it to them, they're not absorbing it. And they've figured out things that work for themselves, and they've heard things... I mean, they like rote repetition, for example, over and over and over again, right? That's what students want to do to learn.
They might be more used to that, some students, especially when they're outside their comfort zone.
It's really what they prefer. I just noticed that. They want to, in biology, they just want to do that.
Oh, in biology. I don't find that's true in my class, but I don't know.
Because it's more of a skill-based, math is so skill-based, like language can be. Whereas biology can appear memorization.
Oh, interesting.
Right? Like talks biology, history, maybe even chemistry, social science. A lot of these humanities appear like you just do rote repetition, whereas something like math or language or even like creative writing
I would say.
they seem very skill based.
Interesting.
So I think that those disciplines maybe are ahead in forcing students to learn techniques, whereas we're way behind.
Oh, interesting. I didn't realize that.
I feel like
it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Might even be the medical type based courses have historically been more approached like that.
I think I'm going to say math based. Like, for example, the physics education research started way earlier than the biology and chemistry.
Yeah, I see
and
what
physics
you're
is
saying.
so math disciplined.
Yeah, it's more applied math. Like it's I can see what you're saying.
Everything's applied math.
Yeah, I have to admit I have the bias in my mind too that I've never had biology. Let me just tell you, in my entire life, I've never had a biology course, which is a shame. But I always think of biology and anatomy and physiology. You're going to memorize a lot of things.
Well, and you might need to memorize some things, but let me get back to the memorization just a point. But so this rote memorization, rote repetition, versus, for example, the research is pretty clear that if people are tested on something first and then taught it, the information sticks better. But people, and if you mix up topics and repeat so that what's the word they're using it? There's a name for this kind of retrieval practice.
Okay.
Right? And they're not really sure why is retrieval practice so helpful in getting people to remember things.
Okay.
But what they do know is people don't like it.
Okay.
Nobody wants to be tested on something you don't know.
Yeah.
And then learn it. It's like that is not our preference.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I need to tell students that one of my goals for them in my semester is that they learn how to use their brain in an effective way, because I'm assuming they don't have infinite amount of time to spend studying, because most of them work and have families and have a lot of classes.
So your pitch is it's more efficient for you. You were going to learn this faster if you kind of subscribe to some of these approaches.
Shorter period of time. You want to use your time efficiently. Don't sit around and rote memorize.
Okay, cool.
It's not going to, you can.
Okay.
And some of you might be good at it, but we're all going to reach our limit of that.
You're going to reach a wall at some point.
And some of them may have reached their wall in the JC, and some may reach it when they transfer, or they may reach it when they're in graduate school, but at some point we all come to the limit of how much we can just grind it out, Yeah.
So it's not a good strategy to invest in early on, because it's one of the things we try to phase out with teaching growth mindset in math is that you can compress knowledge to a certain degree in math, but if you're only relying on recalling facts, eventually you will run into that wall. It happened to me.
Yeah.
Well, it's not about me, this interview. But
anyway, it does as a learner.
Yeah. The reason I don't have a PhD in math is, I'm just going to tell you, I relied on memorization, and I very fixed mindset. I'm good at math. That's what I thought. I'm good at math. Well, I'll just do it. It's so easy. But then when I got to my first graduate course in math, I was like, wow, I can't do this. I don't know how to do this. And I dropped out, Because of that idea, I relied too heavily on my skills of memorization until they no longer worked, and then I just checked out.
Right.
I just didn't go any further. And that's what you're talking
about.
Yeah,
so the first day of class, I always do something that tells them about the research on learning and how I'm going to apply that. So in one class, I'll give it AAAS, the American Association for the Advancement of Sciences, has picked undergraduate biology as their top priority. They don't say reform, they say vision and change.
Okay.
But they mean reform.
Okay. Secrets over here.
Don't tell anybody. Anyway, their first recommendation is that you apply the research on learning and memory to how we teach biology. And so I picked that, so for my biology majors who are wanting to be scientists, some kind, I just go through the vision and change document and have them, and the first thing that they apply is
This is the first day?
This is the first day.
Okay, cool.
And I'll say to them, so one of the big pieces of research on memory is that people chunk information, and memory researchers call it chunking, which we always get a snicker out of, because I don't know why it sounds like a silly name for things.
Well, Ann Foster calls it clustering because she likes the sound of it better. Because chunking actually among young people is to barf.
Exactly, and that's why students like it when I say it.
Oh, they like
it. Okay, good. Right? And anything disgusting.
It is biology, so they might like gross things.
Oh,
right?
and we're going to talk about
biology touch gross things. Right?
It's going to get gross. Okay. And if they want to be a doctor,
they're going to make jokes about chunking.
Human bodies are not a pretty picture when they're sick, right?
Yeah, that's why I've never taken biology.
Yeah, so, you know,
but anyway,
sickness is not a pretty picture. So anyway,
so chunking is one of the...
And they recommend in biology there's 5 core concepts, and
Okay.
everything in biology falls into one of those 5
Okay.
core concepts.
Okay.
And so that's the chunks, right?
Okay.
And then
I
I
see.
give them those 5 core concepts,
Mm-hmm.
and then I break them up into groups, and each group is given one of the core concepts, and they
Okay.
have to define it and find an example from their previous biology
Is this the first
education.
day?
This is the first
Okay.
day. These students are not their first
So they
biology
define
class.
it? Oh, okay.
And they have to find an example,
Mm-hmm.
and then they present to the rest of the class, and then
Wow.
I type up the notes,
Wow.
and then I post that in the Google Drive for them.
Okay.
And then the rest of the semester, every class, the topic is what core concept are we talking about really?
Ah, so you're constantly framing it in those 5 core concepts to chunk it for people so they're not just memorizing, they're actually building conceptual connections and
Right.
neural connections around the material.
Exactly.
Plus you're tapping into prior knowledge that first day, because what do you remember now?
Exactly.
So what are the 5 core concepts?
So
I'm
in
curious. Don't
biology,
put them in my book.
and I can send you a link to, it's called Vision and Change.
Okay,
if you
sure. I
Google
would like
Vision
that.
and Change, AAAS,
Yeah.
their documents will come up.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'd like to see
And
that.
structure and
Okay.
function, the idea that
Okay.
structure determines function.
Okay.
Like the hammer, I give them the hammer and the nail,
Okay.
screwdriver and a screw example.
Sure.
So that's the one that everyone's so comfortable with.
Yeah, I am comfortable with
Because
that.
it's like, we learn that when you have those little sets that you put,
Oh, yeah.
like a 2 or 3 year old, right?
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
teaching them that
That's early, so you're
concept.
tapping into prior
Yeah.
knowledge there. Okay, cool.
That there is a flow of information
Okay.
within systems. So the system can be the
communication
cell.
between organs or cells and
So it could be reproduction from one generation to the
Okay.
next.
oh,
It could be within a cell, from one
Wow.
part of the cell to the next.
wow.
It can be genetic information
Mhm.
with that's being from genetics to protein to
Oh,
functionality,
I see.
and that without those communication information systems,
Mm-hmm.
living systems don't function.
Mm-hmm.
There's a flow of energy and matter.
That's the third one. Okay.
Mhm. So that can be at the cell level, the organism level, the
Mhm.
ecosystem level.
Okay.
You need that to understand climate change. You need that to understand nutrition. You need that
Okay.
to understand the immune system. You need it for everything. So flow of information, flow of energy and matter, evolution and adaptation. And for beginning biology students, I would say that's its own core concept. Structure and function is its own.
Mhm.
But by the time they're advanced, they should know the reason that structure and function match
Mm-hmm.
is because there is natural selection for structures that will give you the survivable function.
Okay.
So function actually comes first.
Okay.
You all need to be able to get nutrition.
Mhm.
Therefore, there's natural selection for structures that give you the nutrients you need.
That makes sense.
Or a plant needs to absorb light. Therefore,
Mhm.
there's natural selection for maximum light uptake, which is why you see photosynthetic organisms
Our plants.
often have flat
Oh.
surfaces, thin, because that's the best structure for absorbing the maximum light.
Oh.
If you have a cactus which is globular,
Mm-hmm.
there's less surface area
Mm-hmm.
and absorbs less light.
Because they want to.
Right, because
Not that they want to. That's my understanding
Right,
of biology.
but-
That's their adaptation. That's their
Right,
evolutionary
because
adaptation.
in the desert, light's not your problem.
Right.
Water is the
Yeah,
problem.
yeah, I
So,
see.
so
Interesting.
initially I would just do evolution and adaptation as separate,
Mhm,
but eventually they start to see the
Mhm.
connection. And the last one is the idea of what we call systems biology,
Hmm.
and it's the idea that basically of emergent properties. That if you look at a system and try and break it down, you can't understand a system unless you look at the component parts.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't understand the component parts unless you look at them in the context of the system.
Oh wow, sounds
So-
like a paradox.
Well, it is, because if you have all the molecules from a cell,
Uh-huh.
that is not life.
Right.
There's something about the way they are organized together
It's like
that
the whole
creates
is greater than the sum of the parts. type of
exactly,
thing.
exactly.
Wow. I feel like I see what you're saying though, because again, I've never had
Mhm.
biology. And just hearing about those 5 classes, even though I didn't, or 5 categories, even though I didn't totally, internalize them, of course, because the iterative process, as you said, it would really help me as I was in a biology class, any biology class from here on in, because I'm like going to be trying to fit that into an existing structure that I already have in my brain.
That's
from
right.
you explaining that to me.
And then one of the
So
things,
that's what you do. That's one of the things you do the first day.
for the ones, the students who are not, it's not their first biology class.
Mm-hmm.
For students who it is their first biology class and the
Okay.
non-majors,
That's tough.
then I don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
I teach different non-majors classes,
Right.
but the class I like the most that I created
Okay.
is a class that teaches general biology through current issues.
Oh, nice. You're connecting biology to what's going on in the world for them that they're experiencing.
That's right. And the first current issue I pick is the diabetes pandemic.
Oh.
And since we have a very big Latino population here at SRJC, and diabetes is particularly prevalent in the Latino population.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's a very, it has a disproportionately large percentage of the population who are Latino suffer from type 2 diabetes.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's the adult onset one.
Yes, yes, and that's actually true for African Americans and Asians as well, whereas Caucasians are more susceptible to type 1 diabetes.
Oh, weird.
And
which you can't control, so it's not.
Well,
you
the
can help
argument
it, right?
about whether you can control either one is very complex.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot of, the research is, it's overwhelming. But so for that group, what I'm doing is just trying to get them invested.
Oh, interesting.
And so instead
of a cultural thing, right? They're like, oh, if you're from the Latinx population and you're like, oh, that's interesting. That applies to my cultural group, to my community. You're going to lean in a little bit more.
So I have them take figuring out how many people have relatives who are diabetics.
Oh.
How many people have close to those relatives who are diabetics.
Wow.
Watching a video about the effect of diabetes.
Wow.
A little short video. Watching, so bringing it up so that they're like, and one video I watched, there was a short clip of a trailer where they're interviewing children who are experiencing diabetes.
Okay.
And different types, type 1 versus type 2. And it's very, I've seen them every semester and I still tear up because it's disturbing.
Oh.
And so nobody, and I say to people, so now we want to learn about the biology of why this is happening. And now they're all invested.
Oh, wow, interesting. So that's how you would launch that whole,
that's
a non-medical.
Non-majors, they're not majoring in biology, they're taking for a GE course, general education.
Okay.
So it's a very different population.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But I just want to go back to something that you said about chunking and how you were starting to see the connections and the launching. And that is that there's two reasons I wanted to talk that I do that. It's one, I want to teach them about chunking.
Okay.
Because I think it's one of the first techniques to learn to help them with their brain.
Okay.
And learning.
In biology in particular, probably.
I think they could apply it to lots of,
it
is true that you chunk information in math, you look at things as types of problems.
Yeah, true. Yeah, that's
and you bring in different skills
chunking,
and the other thing I'll tell them is the research on learning shows that experts acquire information differently than beginners. And one of the things experts do is they group things into meaningful categories, so it's very easy for them to say, that's another example of structure and function, and put it in that category.
Well, I like that, the experts, because that's a growth mindset move too, right? We're mathematicians, we're scientists, we're experts, and so we experiment, and this is how we look at it. I like that. So then they're experts in the class.
Well, I want them to say that they're transitioning from being a beginner to being an expert, and one of the things they need to do that is to learn how to chunk the information. If they want to be like that person who seems so expert to them, it's not that there's something magical about that person.
I love this. Yeah.
It's that they have these skills. Now, honestly, if you were to ask a biologist, do you chunk information? They'd probably be like, I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know what you're even saying.
Yeah, but then I would say, I have to teach a new class, and I'm a plant ecologist, but I have to teach general biology, so I'm having to learn cell and molecular. How come I can learn that so fast? And the reason is I know that structure determines function. If that's at the enzyme and substrate level, or if we're talking about the shape and structure of the digestive system, it's not a new idea for me. It's pretty fast. And you're the same way. If someone was to have you learn some new field of math, it would be pretty quick for you because you have groups, right?
Yeah.
You would certainly be faster than myself, right?
Sure.
Because you know what the big ideas
I have a
are.
framework already in place, a conceptual map in my head, a conceptual framework already in place. Anything, of course, it's like your schema as an instructor, right? You have a schema in place. So then now you have places to put things.
And so I need to teach them what that framework is so they can easily put things into categories. And then the other thing
So wait, I just want to recap that just a little bit. So the idea of giving those 5 categories is the idea of chunking, and because you are explaining in your first class brain theory, neuroscience, and cognitive theory, and not cognitive theory, but cognitive science. But also the secondary part is you're modeling for them what an expert looks like in this subject area.
Yes.
They would know these conceptual categories. They would have this conceptual framework in their head. And so you're actually saying, and that's who you're aspiring to be. So I'm modeling for you what you'd look like in the future.
You know what? I do not emphasize that, but I'm going to from here on out because I love that.
Okay.
But I think what I'm doing is trying to teach them a skill.
Okay.
That they can use whenever and wherever.
Sure.
And then the other thing is that
that's very let me just say for anyone listening right now, watching this video, that is so transferable into any subject area. I mean, just the concept of the expert, the concept of chunking, teaching neuroscience or cognitive science in your first class. I mean, I'm sure anyone, I'm going to watch this later and block out. And nobody ever wants to see themselves, but I'll block me out and watch you. And really listen to this part again, because I'm really interested in what's in there for my discipline that I can take away and use in my discipline.
So I would say I'm trying to teach them about chunking. I'm trying to teach them about that there's research on learning and they can use that.
Okay.
I'm trying to teach them that my brain just went blank.
Expert thing.
That what experts do, and I'm also trying. So the other piece that I learned about cognitive psychology or learning research is that the more connections you build between ideas, the easier it is to store and retrieve. Now, I don't know if this is true, but I was told
that is what you're saying. Complex tasks promote long-term memory storage.
And I think that they say that it's easier to retrieve because there's more than one way into that piece of information.
Yes.
And then the other thing is that our brains, they actually haven't found the limit to what brains can remember. Like that, there's like those memory competitions that people do. Like people keep on
the Rubik's Cubes guys who memorize how to do 3 Rubik's Cubes.
Or these number sequences of pi. And then that it seems to be that we can put almost an unlimited amount of information under one chunk. Like it's like a file folder that can expand and expand and expand.
Oh, I see.
And so
because it's interrelated and you're building on the existing blueprint that you have there.
And I don't really understand how that works, but that's what I've read.
And that's what brain plasticity really is.
And
that's
so
why complex tasks are so important.
So
that's
they
really
should
well put.
So they should just take advantage of that. Like it's like I say this joke. It's like call before midnight tonight and get it for $9.99. It's too good to be true. Like if you chunk things, you can learn things faster. You can do more faster and retrieve it more effectively, and do it in less time. Like that. What don't they like about that?
Right? Like, okay, where do we sign up? You get a free set of
kitchen knives or something. So
that makes a lot of sense.
And the reason for I always talk about why I'm demonstrating a technique for learning, and I want them, and I try and say, okay, I'm going to do all these techniques in class, and you're going to pick the ones that work for you to take with you to your next class to do on your own.
Nice.
And so chunking.
That's a great idea.
Chunking is one. So then. Strategies I use.
So this is still in the first class. I'm just saying that in some ways you're saying that you actually set the stage for all of this in that first class.
That's right.
You really have set the stage for all of this in the first class.
Yes.
Knowing that you're going to weave those threads into instructions the entire semester.
That's right.
And bring them back, spiral them back in. But still, you've really set the stage, and so they're leaning in and waiting for it.
They also can decide if they don't like it.
Yeah, they're like,
time to bail.
I'm out. I don't want to learn efficiently and learn new strategies for being successful. I'm out.
It's very interactive, and if you want to come to class and sit in the back and relax, my class would not be the class for you. So,
and you're saying they have to be doing. They're doing in your class a lot. They're not like the empty vessels waiting for you to fill their flip-top heads with knowledge. They're more engaged in learning.
It would be really lovely if we could just open it up and fill it in like
you might not love your job as much, though. You'd be like, I'd be
like an attendant at a gas station.
Running
it up.
That's a good idea too.
So basically strategies, I guess, I mean, there's so many strategies.
Wait, are we done with launching the class now?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
We might come back.
I know
I'd like to keep it separate for people just a little bit, so when they're listening they're like, but really what you do in the launch, what anyone does in the launch of their class, it really it really communicates their philosophy of teaching and sets the tone and the stage for what is to come, so it makes sense that the next natural question is, what are your strategies in general, and why, when you're talking about launching, how you're really kind of moving into some of your strategies that you do all along in the semester.
And if you'd like me to just make this clean for your videotapes, you can cut the rest out. I believe that the strategies that I want to use throughout the semester is that I want to teach students some of what I know about the science of learning and memory.
Okay.
I want them to practice using those techniques with the content we're learning.
Okay.
I want them to learn to struggle with the material on their own and come to class for us to work on the difficult things.
Okay.
And I want them to learn the essential piece. I think to me the piece going to boil down all of this research on learning to its essential. And this is something that Leon Tzu, the new physics instructor who's got his research background in physics education, says that if you want to boil down all...
Oh, good. I can't wait to hear this.
Everything everyone said about physics education, it's
okay.
People need to do something with what they learned.
Oh, interesting.
And I'm like, yeah, that pretty much summarizes it. And if they don't, they will not find the gaps in their knowledge. And they will not reinforce what they know, and they won't know what questions they need to ask. And so,
by do, you mean like apply it or synthesize or create something or share with other people. Do is a full range of learning things.
And some of that is very content specific.
Okay.
And some of that's very, like for example, I just recently started using clickers.
Okay.
And they like that. And that's something to do, but to make it more.
Okay.
And you need to interview Dan Famini in the Vet Tech program. What he does is he lets them have one clicker between 2 or 3 people.
Oh, nice.
And then
so
they have to argue and decide on which answer. So
that's a great use of clickers. Instead of focusing on correct answers and who can answer the question fast enough correctly, you're actually forcing people to kind of, or encouraging them to communicate with each other before they answer.
Yeah, and Dan does 3 so that they can vote each other out, and I feel like 2's fine. So
that's funny.
So doing something in that case is arguing and discussing with each other. It could be writing something. It could be trying to solve a problem.
Engaging with the material in a way other than just, oh, right, now you've told me that I have that now.
Yeah.
Like, thanks, got it.
Yeah, and then that brings us to the last piece that I really emphasize a lot, which is metacognition.
Okay.
And that's the idea that we can observe our own thinking. And I say to students, we're not, and that could be your emotions, which we're not doing today in this class. Like therapy could be metacognition, right?
Yeah, right.
I am not trained as a therapist, and you would not want me to be your therapist. So let's not move on with that. And
not going in the feelings realm. I do the feeling things with metacognition, but but I don't have to teach biology.
Well, I mean, it's just that
you do what you do.
I mean, it's not that I'm not sympathetic and students don't tell me their problems and stuff, but the advice is worth what they're paying for it, which is free, right?
Okay.
I am not trained to help people. And, I'm just a nice person. That's all I am.
I'm just a nice person, with you in mind.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lovely thing, but it's not the same as maybe they need to see a counselor, or maybe they need to see a doctor, or maybe they need to see.
Sometimes when I do, when I teach how to do word problems, the first thing I say is, how do you feel about this? Where's your anxiety? Are you at a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5?
That's true.
So I touch base like that, and so then because once you name that anxiety, you go, it's a 5. It's immediately a 3 once you say that.
Yeah.
The second you recognize it goes down. That's what I mean by feelings.
Yeah. So metacognition is the ability to assess my own learning and knowledge is really hard to do, and I tell them about how. Well, first 2 things. One is that the research that I've read, since it's a very key indicator of success in academics, people's metacognition abilities, and that it used to be seen as a fixed skill, and then people researched to see that it was actually an acquirable skill.
Okay, cool. So they could learn how to use
assess their own knowledge, And then people are really vague about how to teach it. They'll say, well, it's best taught in the context of the content. And I'm like, okay, great. Well, how do you teach metacognition in biology? And then I didn't find much research on that. So I tell them I'm frankly just experimenting with them on things that help, I think, other students do metacognition.
That's a great modeling, too. You're saying, I'm an experimenter here.
Yeah.
That models for them that you also are experimenters.
And they need to feed it back to me. Did that help you figure out what you knew and didn't do? Yes or no? And if no, let's move on and try something else.
Oh, interesting.
But I tell them it's really key if we only reassure ourselves what we know, how do we improve?
What do you mean by that?
Like, as they study, they're like, oh, I understand this piece of the digestive system. I understand this structure. But then they get to the parts where they don't understand it, and anxiety makes us
jump over it.
Or, here I am taking my Spanish class, and I'm writing my essay, and I'm just like, this is just so fabulous. And it comes back covered in red with grammatical and spelling errors, and I'm like, that are so obvious. Like, how did I not see these?
Oh, interesting.
Like, everybody has that when they write, right? Like, you think, this is perfect, and then you see all the errors. And that's the metacognition problem.
Okay.
We don't see our own errors.
Oh, interesting.
And that's, a teacher is there to help you, or a coach, but at some point everybody needs to take the training wheels off the bicycle.
That skill themselves. Do you give them that example of you in Spanish
class?
Yeah, you do.
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
I figured you did.
Oh, yeah, sure.
You're a real extrovert as an instructor. I am too. Not everyone is.
Well, in fact, when I was taking Spanish, I would finish up my biology class and then walk over to the evening class, and I'd be taking Spanish with some of the students who had been in my class. So you got to get over that inhibition right away.
That's so funny. So they're like really going, oh yeah, I saw you there. You look like you were struggling.
Yeah,
that's
I was.
Funny.
Oh
wow, that's funny.
But I tell them you have to make mistakes to know what you don't know. And you shouldn't be upset when you find a gap in your knowledge. You should be really excited, because normally we find those when we're taking the exam.
Find them beforehand.
And it's way too
wow.
late.
That's a great way of putting it, because that's really the growth mindset focus. And I love that it's saying do that early. Like that, like a fail early, fail often kind of saying. Why find out that gap in knowledge when you're taking a high stakes test when you could find it out when you were doing the homework or discussing
when you
things
had
in class.
people to support you
and
help you.
When it wasn't your last chance.
And students, I'll email with students questions, and I have chat sessions on Canvas, and I'll often do those the night before the exam. But I'm like, you guys, I go to bed at 9:30, and you're studying till midnight. Do not think I'm going to be answering your questions at midnight when you're like finally dawned on you that you don't understand how abscisic acid functions in flowering. You know, that's just not going to happen. You got to get to me
earlier,
so else I'm not around to help you.
I like that framing. That really is a framing that works in math too. I like the way you framed that. I think I'm gonna transcribe that.
Well, isn't all good teaching plagiarism? We're like, ooh, I like that.
Yeah,
still that.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is. That's what. Maybe we should segue into that section. I mean, you could share more strategies, or you could tell us about your community of practice.
Okay. Well, so I just wanted to say about strategies is that I think what may be a little different about what I do is I try and be extremely transparent with the students about why I'm doing each of the things I'm doing, because I'm trying to teach them to do that for themselves, and so they can see what I'm doing.
So they can really make a choice and go, oh, this is why. Oh, do I want to do that? I think I do. Will that work in another class?
Right.
Blah, blah, blah. So that you made it the research explicit.
Yeah. So for example, when I give them a quiz, like sometimes I'll do a clicker quiz on a topic before I talk about it.
Okay.
And they don't like that.
Okay.
Because they don't know the answer.
Yeah.
And so, but if I say to them, research shows that when people do this, they acquire the information more quickly.
I have questions about that one, but anyway, that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah. Retrieval practice, and I can give you a book that's...
It's like predicting, like when you're anticipating what's happening in the book beforehand, and then you've you've already thought about kind of what spaces you have to fill in a little bit.
I think the research in
depends where the anxiety is at.
Yeah, so they didn't know why, but they could see that this test, like giving people quizzes on topics before learning, and I can recommend a book that I read.
I think if it's not too hard, maybe.
Yeah.
Because it's got to be in their zone of proximal development. If it's so beyond what they can even register, then it's probably probably there's a zone of proximal development thing there. Like make it just right so that they're like, at least they're like, the quiz is enough aligned with where they're at so they can say, oh, I don't know how to fill in that blank space, but at least I know what that blank space is about, kind of thing.
So that makes me think that I do two things with that. One is I do it the things questions I'd expect them to be able to answer after I finished.
Ah, that's good.
And
so
I hadn't realized
so it's just a before and after. It's not like the end of the course kind of thing. It's the end of a class.
Or it's things that they will pique their curiosity. That it's counterintuitive.
Like I don't know what the answer to that is.
I expected that, and you told me it's this, but why?
Oh, interesting. So you're very strategic in your pre-quiz.
Yeah, but and it's an area
that makes sense to me.
Anyway, so community of practice or practitioners. So the way this all came about is that around 10 or 11 years ago, I had a sabbatical.
Okay.
And I spent the first part of the sabbatical reading on the research on learning and memory that I was able to get access to. And then I spent
what a great use of your sabbatical.
Yeah. And because I felt like I saw these students struggling, but I didn't know how to help them.
Right.
And then the second half of the sabbatical, I wanted to look at innovative ways people were teaching biology.
Okay.
And I had no idea that AAAS was doing this vision and change, and they were, and so I just threw myself into AAAS's recommendations.
Was this during your sabbatical? Good timing.
And so I came back, and since then I've been trying to enact and put these techniques and changes into my teaching. But I feel like it's made me, I feel like I have a whole second career.
Yeah.
Like what I'm doing now is different than what I was doing before.
Right.
I'm a different teacher, and one of the things I would say is that if I hadn't done that, I've been teaching at the community here for 20 years.
Okay.
And 5 years before that. I could be bored by now.
Oh.
But because from 10 or 11 years ago, I had to like rip apart and recreate my teaching. I'm like, it's all still a work in progress and new.
And now you're still pulling in those strands. You're probably getting more current on information and pulling them in. And
what I would say is people don't know enough about teaching. The research on teaching is very incomplete.
Yeah. Well,
and so there's always more to learn.
And even at the community college level, we don't always have the luxury to take a sabbatical. We teach in silos, and if we haven't had a lot of ed psych theory because we didn't teach in K through 12, we may not have had the opportunity to do what you did. It was great you did that because like you said, you could just get, at a community college level, you could have a master's in a discipline, but not really ever having had the opportunity to learn about cognition science and neuroscience, and that's really awesome that you took that break to go do that, and then pulled that all into your instruction. Like you said, it created like this whole new career. Yeah. It's like you kind of recreated your position and yourself and your instruction and your career, your vocation.
And so I came back all excited, like, everyone's going to want to know this. They're going to all want to know this.
And now you're sounding like me. Don't scare me.
And I ran whack into that brick wall of resistance where the truth is there is a large portion of the teaching profession that would say dismisses all of this research and wants to continue in the way that they've been doing it. It worked for them. It worked for this. And so...
it's a little sad.
The zeal of a proselytizer, let's convert everybody. It took me a while to get that beaten out of me, but it's fine because I realized what I need to do is turn to the people who want this.
Yeah, that's a good. I like that idea. Sure.
And build a community of people who support each other in these pursuits.
Yeah, because you need that. Because we're in silos. Like even today, I was like, I got to write that down. I got to try that with my class. I'm interviewing you, but everyone can't go around interviewing people.
Which is why it's great that you're doing this.
Yeah, because then they can share it. But
so I have I'm probably going to retire in 10 years. Okay. Right? So I'm just a planner. So I have two main goals of what I'd like to accomplish here at JC before I leave.
I hope I can be part of them.
Oh, you are.
I already am.
Oh, you are.
I didn't agree to anything, but I am part of this plan. Okay.
And one of them
then I want to hear what the plan is.
Here's your plan.
Okay.
And I want to create a community of people who are interested in pursuing the research on learning and support each other in that. And so that and that's why I have been participating with Dan Famini and Katie Jamshidi in doing this community of practice where we on science of teaching. Right. And then and Leon Chiu, who's in physics, joined us.
Love him.
And then there's a woman, I think it's Luz Garcia, who is
Luz Navarrete Garcia.
I think it never.
She's writing a section in the book.
Well, she talked to Laura Lynn Larson about would our Science of Teaching want to join her and doing something that was looking at research and the techniques to reduce inequities in the classroom and address different diverse populations.
Oh, wow.
So I think next year's community of practice will be what is the research on teaching and how to address diverse populations, how to apply active learning, how to look at assessment.
Personally, I think you guys should use my book as a reading book. As a reading club kind of thing.
So,
wow,
so that's very exciting.
That's your plan.
So
okay.
it feels like...
So I am part of the plan. Okay.
You are part of the plan.
I'm willingly part of
the plan. And last fall, we just had people who'd meet on Friday once a month to keep on continuing it. This year, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed by other commitments, so I don't know if I can do that.
Really busy. You are really committed. I know.
I'm a little
dedicated.
Too
much.
It's definitely too much.
I know. It took forever to get you here. I'm so glad.
So that is why I'm so excited that you're here.
Okay,
and
great.
Leon's here. These people have come
awesome.
with all this background and knowledge and research. I'm self-taught, and by that it means there's areas where I really know quite a bit, and there's areas where I don't know anything.
That's true of everybody.
But you and Leon have been really working in this field in a way that I feel like...
Is his PhD in physics education?
I don't know, but he was teaching in physics education.
Oh, okay. So yeah, that is the area where you get those things.
Yeah.
It's true. Yeah.
And so it's really exciting to me that the college has acquired these people who have...
We're focusing on education. Oh, I see.
And that can help support this community of people who are interested in the research on education with the depth of knowledge that you have.
Yeah.
And so I think myself as a dedicated amateur.
Well, we're all, I call it I don't know, I don't use that word. I only use the word expert.
Yeah.
Because you have a beginning expert and people who are more developed, but according to Niels Bohr, right, you can appreciate this, an expert is someone who's made all the mistakes you can make in a very small field. And that way we're all experts. We're either beginning experts or more advanced experts. I feel like, I am writing a book and I'm listening to people. I'm learning stuff. I'm like, oh my God, why don't I do that? I mean, so we're all blossoming experts on teaching, what do you call it? The science of teaching.
Science of teaching is just a job.
I always worry about that because people think it's science.
Well,
but it's really like learning sciences, cognition sciences, research.
And the reason I use that is I do think that there are differences based on the content you're teaching.
Sure.
And the work that I've done is in the people who are doing research on teaching biology and science. So I don't know if everything...
Is it the science of teaching because it's science then?
Well,
I'm confused.
I've heard people use the word scientific teaching.
Oh, okay. Sure.
And then science of teaching I thought was a little bit less wedded to science. I don't know. There's
going to just be research and practice. Basically, that's what we're talking about is the research and practice, right?
Education, research, and practice?
Yeah.
Let's call it that.
Yeah, because that's what we're talking about is research-informed practices that we're all trying in the classroom.
I think we're going to change the name of our community practice.
Really?
Yep.
This is where it happens here.
Sold.
Oh my God.
And so I think that there's a couple barriers that are in place for faculty to make these changes.
Money.
Well,
time
is one of them, and the other is the content. I must cover all of this content in my class to match the course outline of record. And therefore I don't have the time in class to do these techniques.
But you're doing it. I do it.
Well,
I mean, it's called layering. I call it spiraling in those skills, layering. It's very dense and it makes my neck hurt sometimes when I'm doing all those things as you are. Just hearing about your first day of classes, right? You're layering in so many things. You're spiraling in things throughout the semester.
Yeah.
And it does make your neck hurt sometimes to manage so many things and pull all those strands in to weave this tapestry of very complex instruction. But I'm not sure that, I don't feel like I give up any content as a result.
Well,
but I'm also not teaching biology.
Yeah, I hope this is okay to say.
I hope so. I hope so too.
I would say that there is no way in biology to do this without cutting content.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is that, one, biology is a very content-rich.
Dense. Yeah, it is very dense.
And secondly, of all the science fields, biology is the one that's undergoing the most rapid change.
Okay.
The juncture of informatics with molecular biology has led.
But anyway, okay.
Yeah, so molecular and cellular biology, the knowledge about what's happening at the molecular and cellular level, and then informatics, the ability to manipulate that information with computer systems and look for patterns and discern, genomics, proteomics, where you have like massive databases of all the genes and all the proteins and trying to see the patterns that
That's
emerge.
a lot of things. Already I'm getting that pain in my neck.
Exactly. But what it means is that our knowledge about biology is growing exponentially.
So you have to make hard choices anyway, independent of integrating the learning science in there.
Yeah, so what's beginning biology? Well, when I was an undergraduate, they didn't even know about signal transduction, but now they're like, well, you have to teach that because it's just have to. And I'm like, you kind of can't understand much of what we understand about modern biology without signal transduction. On the other hand, it's kind of an advanced topic, I perceive. And so the solution is the textbooks have just gotten thicker and thicker, and that we're cramming more in.
That's a whole nother issue.
It is a whole other issue, which is why AAAS picked biology as their top priority for changing. And frankly, the question would be, if I have 5 core concepts, do I need to give them every example of structure and function?
I see.
Every example of a negative feedback loop? Or if I've given them one negative feedback loop, can they acquire the information on another one on their own?
I see, sure. And I like your idea of going with this conceptual map and the conceptual framework, because people can always fill in the details if they have the conceptual map and the conceptual framework and some solid examples that define what you're talking about. But in their next class, they could like fill in the tiny little mosaic pieces that make the complete picture, because it doesn't sound like biology is just busting out like maybe.
Yeah, where it's really difficult.
Math, as you know, is the same. As it's always been, not how you teach it.
Right.
But the content, if you're teaching calculus today, you are pretty much, you might be using some technology, but it's the same content that it was 50 years ago.
Right.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, that makes it a different, biology's a little challenging.
Yeah, that is challenging.
And that's why AAAS picked it as their first.
That's really wonderful that they're forging ahead with a model so that you don't have to make all those hard choices uninformed.
Yeah, and AAAS is, so one barrier to this is the content. You do have to get rid of content.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
And the second is people don't like change.
Yeah, that's a bigger one, I would say.
It is, because once you've accepted that you need to change, then you'll figure a way around the other barrier. And the other, so this helps that AAAS is stepping in, because AAAS and NSF are the 2 biggest science organizations in the United States, probably. Right. AAAS is the one that publishes the journal Science, which is Science and Nature, the 2 leading science journals worldwide. Okay. So this is not like a fly-by-night organization. This is the premier flagship science organization of the United States.
I think biology has unique challenges, I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, not in the sense that people don't want to change. Instructors don't want to do this, they're just not going to do it. But in terms of the content, I don't. Math is really almost exempt from that. I would say writing and English are exempt from that. History. Yeah. I mean, probably the cutting edge sciences, even anatomy and physiology. I'm assuming are.
Well, physio can change.
Okay. Sure.
But so having AAAS at your back, saying I'm doing what AAAS recommends, is really helpful with people who don't like change, because it's hard to say you.
I, Abigail Zoger, think you should do this.
or even to say like who are you, Abigail Zoger, to tell us that this is what we need to do? Right. And I'm like, well, I'm just doing what AAAS is saying, right? You know, it gives, you got the big dog at your back.
Right.
And then I think the final, and time is a problem. And the last barrier, is there are institutional structural barriers. So for example, people will always say, well, what about the MCATs? Those are the exams people take to get into medical school.
So you can't just cut things out.
I can't just cut things. No, that's not going to work. Well, the MCATs have recently changed in light of this work. Okay. And they are putting much more emphasis on reading from research papers sections of it, and then making the students answer questions about this.
That would be nice if the institutional structures changed to kind of be in alignment with this idea of focusing on metacognitive skills, learning. Research.
So that's like I think in the last 2 or 3 years it's been in the works. So that's another barrier pulled out from, because the there's a number of things you hear people say, counter arguments, and one of them is what about the MCATs? It's a classic counter argument.
Standardized testing is always that hammer that we all get bashed over the head with.
Yeah. And a majority of biology students are interested in health-related fields. Not all, but a large portion.
Sure, I bet.
So that's my plans for the future.
Well,
my plans to take over the world.
I love it, and I'm on board. Now we're a team. Finally we get together. Well, thanks for coming on.
Yes.
Thanks for coming on like it's a show. I don't know, is this a show? It's a YouTube channel, I guess. Anyway, I'm Felicia Darling. This is Abigail Zoger. She is a biology teacher in the life sciences department. Did I get it wrong? Or biological sciences?
We changed to biological sciences. We've been saddled with life sciences for many years, but people are like, what does that mean? And we're like,
I don't know either.
We mean biology.
So biological sciences.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks for coming on the YouTube channel. I hope you guys get something out of this. I got a lot of good ideas.
I'm so glad you're doing this, and so glad you joined us.
Thank you.
Really
Thank you. I think this is good. It's nice to be part of the community of, I call practitioners.
Excellent.
Right?
Excellent. Okay.
Thanks, Emily.